As you may probably know, Russia is considered to be one of the most homophobic countries on earth. At least Russians actively tried to build this image for their country, and it seems they successfully did it. Now everyone knows Russians aren't gays and they don't like gays. But is this actually the case for Russia? Are they such a straight society? Well, I've got 7 evidences for you that prove Russia to be the most gay country ever. Let's go! Evidence number 7. Aggressive homophobia. Being widely spread and encouraged by Russian media, homophobic attitude comes from many sources, from Russian Orthodox Church and Islamic leaders and different media freaks to highest authorities in power. They pretentiously call it traditionalism and defending family values, while in reality it turns into actual oppression of gay people, public shaming and beating up gay sympathizers and protesters by police and local morons, which makes Russia look certainly a homophobic state. Although what makes Russian homophobia an evidence of Russia being a gay country is that at this moment, multiple psychological studies have already shown that homophobia, especially when it takes an aggressive form, is a sure sign of hidden homosexuality. And if you take into consideration forms that homophobia takes in Russia, can you imagine what a homosexual monster is hiding there behind all those hate talks, bullying, and anti-gay propaganda, which takes us to the point number 6. Russian propaganda. Another well-known fact, with an exception of short warm period in relations with the Western world when the Soviet Union collapsed, Russian propaganda has never disappeared and stayed the same until now. Russian authorities need propaganda in order to stay in power simply because any manifestation of democracy or just people's free will is the biggest threat to the regime, so they would utilize any anti-West idea regardless of how crazy it is, just to show they oppose to the West. That's why Russian propaganda is aggressively homophobic. Now all sorts of Russian freaks and fundamentalists are completely unleashed and free to say whatever they want. Whatever ruling party wants, to be more precise. Since all Russian media is under control of the government, it's easy to guess that behind that artificial homophobic attitude they want us to see, there is a Russian society, which obviously a lot more gay than they want us to believe. Evidence number 5. Cult of prison. At this point we are getting closer to the core of Russian hidden homosexual culture. Despite being notoriously famous for its prison camps in the past like Gulag, which Russians by the way are questioning these days if it was any evil, Russia has a specific cult of prison. A good portion of modern Russian culture is significantly inspired by prison experience, criminal's life, and some sort of criminal romance. If you would get to know Russians better, you would notice it's everywhere, in music, in cinematography, even in casual life activities. It's a common thing for Russians to pay respect to famous local criminals and being proud of having them as friends. What do Russians forget though at this point is to ask themselves a question. What criminals do in prison? Yep, they bang each other there. Lots of them are homosexuals, but Russians seem to be focused more on a romantic aspect of this culture and not paying attention to details, as well as probably Russian criminals do. Speaking of romantic, let's move on to the point number 4. Russian chanson. Yes, this is a music. First, you have to know you should not confuse the concept of chanson you get used to with Russian chanson, which is all about cruel life of Russian prisoner, iniquitous destiny, and evil cops that for some reason just don't like crimes and criminals. It can be often performed by actual former prisoners in a specific manner with low voice and very basic beats, but usually this music style is utilized by artists who just pretend to have criminal experience. There are even legends that every respectful Russian driver listens to while driving. I'm not going to generalize too much here, but this is definitely a thing in Russia, which, along with all mentioned here, makes a certain logical chain. Along with the cult of prison, Russian chanson contributes a lot into romanticization of criminal life in Russia, huge part of which is spending sentences in prison while banging your cellmates' butts, which again has been scientifically proved as not that healthy activity and inevitably result in health issues, which immediately takes us to the point number 3. AIDS epidemic. Have you known that Russia has the highest rate in spreading AIDS in all Eastern European and Central Asian regions and takes its own place of honor among many African countries? Well, now you know. There is an epidemic of AIDS in Russia, with the epicentrum in Yekaterinburg. Here are just few results from Google search on this topic. Russia's HIV/AIDS epidemic is getting worse, not better. The epidemic Russia doesn't want to talk about. The silent epidemic, HIV and AIDS in Russia, and so on and so on. The topic is huge and worth a separate video, but it definitely adds a link to our logical chain here and makes another evidence of Russian hidden homosexuality. You don't need to be an expert to assume that AIDS spread and homosexual practices can be mutually related. And considering the scale of AIDS epidemic in Russia, it's also easy to guess the scale of homosexuality there. Evidence number 2. Cursing, or rather the way Russians talk. Unlike the rest of the countries where people also use cursing words a lot to emphasize their points, Russians are cursing to make specifically homosexual references in order to make their points. When it comes to arguing, they don't hesitate to tell everybody about their secret erotic fantasies, making everybody wondering, though, why those fantasies are all about relationships between men. There is even a famous proverb about Russians in this regard. Someone talks about something, Russian talks about banging butts, or sucking dicks, or and so on. And last one, but not least, evidence of Russian hidden homosexuality, point number 1, is Russian army. Now I have to warn you, the following information may seem to be overwhelmingly shocking to be true, but unfortunately it is true. So prepare yourself, you won't be able to stop knowing it. According to Russian news agency Rambler.ru, in the middle of 2000s, a loud discussion of the problem of unconventional sex in the army suddenly began in the Russian press. And not just sex, but sex for money. One of the materials reported that international gay publications called Russian army the leader in selling soldiers and cadets of military schools for love pleasures. The range of prices per night was allegedly from $100 to $500, and a soldier could be hooked up both in certain places in Moscow and directly in the units. In the latter case, it was possible to see the album directly at checkpoints and choose the one who was more to your taste. After the publication of the materials and the violent backlash that they caused in the military circles, the topic of gay army prostitution was no longer discussed. It is reported by Rambler. And this is just the first result from Google search. There are more. Let's check out briefly just only titles. The Russian army has become a hotbed of homosexual prostitution and violence. The army has become a hotbed of homosexuality. Niche anal features of barrack life. Located from the back, top secret. Gays, the glory of a real army. Now, who could guess that brave Russian army, winners of World War II as they called themselves, the army that every Russian boy used to consider as honor to join, turns out to be actually the gay army? At this point, we should be aware. When a Russian says he's going to fuck you, it may not be a figurative speech. He may actually very likely mean it literally. Well, those were funny facts, but again, I'm not going to generalize too much and tar every Russian with the same brush. I just wanted to clarify the picture of what is happening in Russia in this regard and dispel the myth that Russia is such a homophobic country. As you can see, there are enough evidences that Russia is actually just as gay country as any other, and in some respects it is very likely that Russia actually is the most gay country in the world. Thanks for watching. If you found the video interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'm gonna be doing bold political analysis touching your very sensitive spots. See ya!